Welcome to the deep dive. Um, just pause for a moment and consider this striking paradox of modern life. We live in a world with, unprecedented comfort, safety, ease, more opportunities than any generation before us. Sounds like we should be thriving, right?
You'd think so. Yet when you look at the research, well, we're seeing a startling increase in mental illness,
Hmm.
record sales of antidepressants, and tragically high rates of suicide and self-harm. It really begs the question, what's actually going on here? Why are we, despite all this progress, suffering such, well, deep emotional pain and anguish?
That's precisely the profound question we're digging into today. Our deep dive is really an exploration of timeless wisdom and fundamental psychological principles. We're primarily drawing on some powerful insights from David J. Lieberman, PhD's If God Were Your Therapist. Our mission for you today is to uncover why, regardless of our external circumstances, a lack of self-control often leads to, well, poor choices, negative emotions, and destructive habits. And crucially, we'll explore how you can maybe regain control, purpose, and ultimately true emotional freedom. And here's what's truly liberating about this perspective, I think. The solution isn't about rote exercises or affirmations or, complex homework. It's about a fundamental shift in your perspective,
Right.
allowing you to move your thoughts and choices in a powerful, purposeful direction, one that leaves the shackles of anxiety and stress behind.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, let's start with the core concept. Perspective. Have you ever wondered why some individuals seem to navigate life's inevitable challenges with a kind of calm, almost unshakable resolve, while others seem to just crumble at the slightest frustration? Think about a small child whose entire world is shattered when their favorite toy breaks. They're crying, frustrated, angry. They simply cannot see beyond that broken toy.
Total meltdown.
Right. But their parents, they have a broader perspective. They know it's, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And intellectually, we often know what upsets us is unimportant, like that trainee checkout clerk who seems to be operating the register like it's a jumbo jet cockpit or something.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there. Yet we still find ourselves losing our cool.
It's a common experience, definitely. And the challenge is that fighting the urge to blow up or melt down, as the book puts it, is often battling our own sort of ingrained nature. While quick fixes, like, say, deep breaths, might help with minor annoyances,
Sure.
the book argues they're pretty insignificant for life's really big challenges. The true key, it says, is not becoming agitated in the first place.
Okay, so prevention rather than cure.
Exactly. And what's truly fascinating here is how Lieberman connects this to principles of quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics.
Yeah, the idea isn't just that perspective makes us see reality differently, but that on a quantum level, it creates our reality.
Whoa, yeah.
This suggests that the very act of our observation, our vantage point, literally brings certain things into existence. It makes us affect reality as if we were a single organism.
That's a truly profound concept. It completely flips our usual thinking on its head, that our internal state isn't just a reaction. It's an active force shaping our world. And this leads us to understand our inner landscape better, maybe.
Precisely.
The source highlights 3 inner forces that exist within human beings and are, it says, often at odds with each other. The body, which wants what feels good, ego, which chases what looks good, and the soul, which seeks what is genuinely good. If you hit the snooze button this morning, well, you probably know who won that first round.
Exactly. Overindulgence, whether it's overeating, oversleeping, or just endless scrolling, often stems from that body drive, a primal urge for immediate comfort or, escape. And ego drives. They manifest in things like making jokes at someone else's expense to feel superior.
Oh, yeah.
Or buying things you can't really afford just to impress people you don't even like that much.
Right. Keeping up appearances.
Yeah. And the consequence of constantly succumbing to immediate gratification or chasing an external image is that we end up feeling angry with ourselves and, well, deeply empty inside. To compensate, our ego takes over, making us egocentric. This, the book argues, narrows our perspective, making us increasingly more sensitive and unstable. So the big question is, how do we break out of this cycle?
That's a question many of us grapple with, isn't it? And the book offers a really counterintuitive answer here. It says self-esteem and ego are inversely related, like a seesaw.
A seesaw, okay.
Yeah. When one goes up, the other goes down. True lasting self-esteem, we learn, comes from making responsible choices and just doing what is right, regardless of how it feels or looks to others in the moment.
So if the ego is constantly running the show,
Then it's essentially the path to self-destruction,
mm,
according to the source.
right. When we don't like who we are deep down, we often punish ourselves with activities that are kind of disguised as pleasurable.
Like what?
Well, like excessive eating, substance abuse, or what the source calls endless, meaningless distractions.
Oh, I recognize that. Doom scrolling, maybe?
Could be. These are described as illusions for love, temporary and hollow refuges that, in the end, only lead to greater pain. It becomes this cruel cycle of avoidance that just inevitably spirals downward.
And this brings us to the profound power of choice. You might be surprised to hear this, but research consistently shows lottery winners often lead miserable lives after their windfall.
Really? You'd think they'd be ecstatic.
You would. But there's even a statistically significant pattern of suicides, divorces, and bankruptcies among them. Some people actually call it the lottery curse.
Wow. Why is that?
Well, from this perspective, it's clear. True self-esteem comes from making good choices, and sudden, unearned money simply gives more ammunition for greater unproductive behavior.
Ah, okay. So it doesn't fix the underlying issues, it just amplifies them.
Seems like it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, then, it suggests that nothing affects us, we affect everything.
Hmm.
The findings are actually quite stark. External factors like income, physical attractiveness, even intelligence. They have little or no effect on our overall emotional well-being.
Little or no effect. That's surprising.
It is. And for you listening, it's important to understand that while genes do play a role in mental health, about 1/4 is heritable. They estimate.
Okay.
The vast majority, 3/4, is not. This means you have plenty of opportunity to decide what kind of person you want to become.
So the idea is that we actually choose our reality, because each circumstance is like a blank canvas
Mm-hmm.
until we paint the picture with our thoughts, which then give rise to our emotions. For instance, imagine someone acts rudely towards you. That rudeness reflects on them, right?
Mm.
Not on you.
Ideally, yes.
Your feeling about it comes from your own internal state, your self-image. Think about how differently you'd react to a crazed person screaming at you versus a close friend,
Big difference.
or a car cutting you off. Would you react the same way if it was a little old lady clearly struggling versus a young male blaring music?
Probably not. It's the meaning we assign.
Exactly. And there's a really interesting insight here. The more arrogant a person appears to be on the outside, the more vulnerable and helpless he is on the inside.
That rings true. And this brings us to a fascinating linguistic insight from neurolinguistic programming, or NLP.
NLP, okay.
Yeah, it explores how our language and thought patterns influence our behavior and reality. And from this perspective, a sentence like, "My friend makes me angry," is actually, well, semantically ill-formed and structurally incorrect.
Also,
The core idea is that it literally is not possible for one human being to create an emotion in another human being.
right, we feel our own emotions.
Precisely. We often assign responsibility for his emotion to someone else rather than owning it ourselves. The meaning we assign to any situation is based on how we feel about ourselves deep down, and only a change in behavior, a change in our choices can truly unlock our perspective.
That makes so much sense. Now, okay, even if we intellectually understand this power of choice, our egos often lead us to fall short, right? We know better, but we still react.
Happens all the time.
But there are moments, what the source calls flashes of perspective, like maybe after witnessing a serious accident or some other shock. For a moment, you feel quiet, almost detached, and so much seems suddenly irrelevant, trivial.
Yeah, priorities shift instantly.
In that instant, you often gain immense self-control, and it becomes remarkably easier to make better choices, just for a bit.
And this brings us to the psychological mechanics of gratitude. It's quite interesting. Contrast the deep, lasting gratitude of someone who, say, worked tirelessly for months to regain the use of a leg after a severe accident
Oui.
with the fleeting gratitude of someone who maybe narrowly averted a car crash. Or, even more common, the complete lack of gratitude for just an uneventful journey home.
We take it for granted.
Totally. The source suggests this is often because we have a sense of entitlement and believe what we have is deserved. The deeper our perspective, the more permanent and profound our gratitude becomes. If we are egocentric, the book says, we are constantly angry and frustrated at life for coming up short, always consumed with what we lack rather than appreciating what we have.
This takes us to cognitive dissonance, doesn't it? That uncomfortable internal conflict when reality clashes with our ability to accept it.
Right.
Like imagine you buy a new watch for $500, then you immediately see it advertised somewhere else for $300.
Ouch. Yeah, that stings. That creates an internal inconsistency.
So a healthy level of self-esteem allows us to simply admit, okay, I made a mistake or bad timing and just move on.
Right. Accept it.
But a lack of self-esteem, that leads us to deflect. We might conclude, the world is unfair or people are crooked. That kind of thinking, the source warns, can sow the seedlings of neurosis and paranoia.
Yes, it's what the book calls the accept or deflect response. A strong mind accepts and confronts directly, acknowledging reality even if it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
But a weak mind deflects the threat, often with phrases like, you are wrong, or that classic, well, this is just how I am.
The justification.
Exactly. It leaves very little room for admitting I was wrong. And this constant deflection prevents psychological development. It's like an emotional immune system that only gets stronger through actually confronting and accepting things.
Like building muscle.
Kind of, yeah. As Shakespeare famously put it, to thine own self be true. Denying the truth doesn't make it go away. It makes us, the real us, go away. Full acceptance, however, it dissolves fear because there is no longer a threat of exposing ourselves. We are what we are.
So how do we break free and truly own our reality then? It sounds like a huge step.
It is.
The source introduces this powerful idea of a first cause within us. Just as the universe, it suggests, had a first cause, maybe God, depending on your view. We, being created in the image of the Creator, possess the God-given gift of free will to actually rise above our nature.
Rise above our base instincts.
Exactly. It's beautifully illustrated in that classic Aesop's fable of the turtle and the scorpion. Remember, the scorpion stings the turtle mid-river, even though it dooms them both.
Right, and says, it's my nature.
Precisely. The fable shows animals are governed by your nature,
Yeah.
but humans are not. We have the choice to rise above our urges and our conditioning.
This is such a critical insight. All positive change begins with some version of I am responsible, and crucially not as a mere mantra you repeat,
Right, not just words.
but as a deep internal insight, a realization. Renowned psychiatrist Dr. William Glasser states this really powerfully. People do not act irresponsibly because they are ill. They are ill because they act irresponsibly.
Wow, that flips the usual script.
It does. Blaming external factors, whether it's our parents or circumstances, society, whatever, it simply keeps us stuck, powerless, unable to move forward.
Okay, so if we accept responsibility, how do we transform that lingering guilt, maybe from past mistakes, into productive action? How do we actually move forward?
The source provides a powerful 4-step process for this. To shift negative feelings into positive emotions and turn guilt into, well, useful regret.
4 steps, okay?
First, feel remorseful, genuinely ashamed of the action, not just sorry you got caught. Second, stop the behavior. Make a concrete plan and stick to it.
Action.
Third, confess. Before God, as the source puts it, and for interpersonal wrongs, first confess to the person you actually wronged.
That takes courage.
It does. And finally, the 4th step is to resolve not to do it again. Make a firm commitment.
Remorse, stop, confess, revolve.
And this leads directly to the power of an apology, which is fundamentally about letting go and gaining freedom for yourself. It's not even about whether the other person deserves an apology.
It's for your own peace.
Exactly. This is described as free will at its highest level, choosing to let go. What's even more thought-provoking is how the source brings in that quantum erasure effect again.
The quantum thing again.
Oh, yeah. Remember we talked about how something happening now can influence how we interpret or perceive past events? Well, apply this to our lives. It means a shift in perspective now allows us to undo our past and permanently alter how we see ourselves in our world.
Undo the past. How?
Not literally change the events, but change their meaning and their hold on us. Think of that unsettling example given. The elderly woman told on her deathbed that her loving husband of 60 years was actually a paid actor.
Oh, that's awful.
Horrifying. But it illustrates the point. That new information has a massive impact on the before, fundamentally changing the meaning of her entire past life in an instant.
Wow. Okay, so the meaning isn't fixed.
Right, and it's powerful to realize that we don't necessarily need to make peace with the past before moving on. We don't have to wait until we feel healed. Often, the source suggests it is only when we move our lives forward in a meaningful direction that we are able to let go of the past and its negative associations.
So action now helps heal the past.
Exactly. Taking responsibility now converts that old pain into fuel that ignites our emotional freedom.
Fuel, I like that.
And a core component of this whole forward movement is humility. The source describes humility as the gateway to emotional health, spiritual growth, and positive relationships.
The gateway.
It stands in stark contrast to arrogance, which, as the book puts it, suffocates our relationship with our Creator and, frankly, repels others because there is no room for anyone else in an arrogant person's world.
Makes sense. So, moving on from healing the past, the source highlights the pinnacle of personal responsibility, to take our lives seriously.
Seriously, how so?
Well, it means the diligent pursuit of our ambitions. And this isn't just wishful thinking. It has 5 key components.
Okay, what are they?
1, having meaningful objectives, things that actually matter to you. 2, designing a realistic plan to get there. 3, creating proper structure in your life. 4, setting deadlines. And 5, acting with complete honesty and integrity throughout.
Meaningful objectives, realistic plan, structure, deadlines, integrity.
Got it.
Yeah.
And the book reminds us that there is no status quo in nature. Organisms die if they don't grow. We stagnate.
Great, use it or lose it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It argues we each have a specific purpose that is unique to us. When we pursue goals based just on external image or fleeting cravings, we end up living reactively and often become depressed. We need to expand our thinking and ask ourselves, what do I really want out of life? Not just wallow in, I hate my life.
So, intrinsic motivation.
Exactly. It also warns about the trap of setting goals based purely on someone else's expectations, because that just creates dependency and resentment. There's compelling research mentioned about Olympic medalists,
Oh, yeah.
where bronze medalists often appear happier, genuinely happier than silver medalists.
Why is that? Silver is better than bronze. You'd think. But the theory is the silver medalist is often thinking, I almost got gold, focusing on what they didn't get. The bronze medalist is often thinking, wow, I actually got a medal, focusing on what they did achieve.
Ah, perspective again.
Yeah.
Comparison.
Right. It vividly illustrates how an egocentric mindset based purely on comparison is pretty much doomed to fail and is a recipe for mental instability. Always looking over your shoulder.
Okay, so when you do align with your own objectives, your own purpose, what happens?
You can experience what the source calls having a galvanized soul.
Galvanized soul. Sounds intense.
It's described as a state where the ego is kind of neutralized, bringing profound emotional stability and effortless attention. Think of an athlete or an artist who's totally in the zone.
Yeah, flow state.
Exactly. They are flawless in his performance, neither self-aware nor self-conscious, and can even forget that he hasn't eaten or slept. Time just disappears. The book uses a powerful example. A mother losing her child momentarily on a busy sidewalk. Does she care what anyone thinks about her frantic searching, her screaming?
Not at all. Only finding the child matters.
Precisely. When it's not about us, the source says, we can access any trait that we need. Focus, courage, determination, whatever it takes.
Wow. Okay, so we have the objective, but you mentioned a plan.
Yes. Beyond the objective, it's crucial to have a clear plan of action, not just a vague idea of, I want to do X. The source brings in Occam's razor here.
And simplest solution.
Generally, yeah. The principle that the simplest explanation or solution is often the best. It cautions against overly complex, circuitous routes that are often born out of fear rather than logic.
Trying to avoid something difficult, maybe.
Could be. And then there's Parkinson's law. Ever heard of that?
Remind me.
It states that work expands to fill the time available.
Right. If you have all day to do something.
It takes all day. The book illustrates this with a funny anecdote about an elderly lady who takes literally all day just to write and mail a single postcard because she has nothing else scheduled.
Huh. Been there.
Without a clear timetable and structure, minutia takes over our lives and inflates to seem way more important than it is. We get bogged down.
And tied to that is the importance of structure in general in our lives. Structure allows for growth, it says, and prevents our energy from just dissipating aimlessly.
Like containing water so it can flow powerfully.
Good analogy. The source compares it to being in a huge jewelry store without any plan or life. You're paralyzed by all the choices, not free because of them. It connects this need for structure to the code of conduct found in many religions, highlighting that boundaries aren't restrictions. They're actually necessary to our emotional health. They provide definition.
Interesting. And the last component of that diligent pursuit was integrity.
Yes, integrity is presented as absolutely vital. Dishonesty, the book explains quite bluntly, is the friction that slows us down in achieving our goals.
Friction. Okay.
Despite any perceived short-term gain you might get from being untruthful, it ultimately breeds arrogance and impedes our ability to succeed in the long run. It creates inner conflict.
But when we act with integrity, especially when it looks like we might lose something in the short term by being honest,
Yeah.
we demonstrate trust in ourselves, in fairness, maybe even in the universe or God, and we actually gain the support of the universe, as the book puts it. Things tend to work out better overall.
Okay, that's a powerful framework for personal ambition. Now, let's shift gears slightly to relationships. The source notes that emotionally healthy people generally cultivate positive connections. Seems obvious, maybe?
It does, but the why is interesting. A lack of self-esteem, as we discussed, often leads us to constantly seek external approval. We need validation from others. This turns us into, and this is a striking image, a cup without a bottom that can never truly be filled, no matter how much approval we get.
Always needing more. Wow. And here's another really powerful insight the source states. Man is the sum total of what he gives, and he loses a piece of himself every time he takes.
That's a profound distinction, isn't it, between giving and taking? The book argues every positive emotion stems from giving and flows outward from us to others.
Love, kindness, compassion.
Exactly. Whereas every negative emotion revolves around taking, greed, envy, resentment.
Wanting something from others or the world.
Right. Think of the boundless, unconditional love a parent often has for their child. It flows outward. Compare that to, say, an art collector whose fascination often wanes once they acquire a new piece. Why? Because the source suggests he does not love his art, he loves himself through the art. The taking fulfills the ego.
That's a sharp contrast. Okay, but what about difficult people in our lives? We all have them, right? This raises an important question. Are they just a problem to be avoided, managed, or maybe cut out? Or is there another way to look at them?
Well, the source suggests something quite radical. They are the solution, not the problem. They are there to help us.
Help us. How can difficult people help us?
By challenging us, by forcing us to grow, to develop patience, boundaries, self-control. It reminds us of the flight attendant's oxygen mask analogy. We are no good to anyone if we are no good to ourselves.
Right, put your own mask on first.
So, while setting healthy boundaries is absolutely crucial, the book highlights that just cutting out of our lives those people who are difficult is rarely the true long-term solution for our own growth.
But why do people act difficult, especially towards those who care about them?
Well, the source explains that when we lack self-control, when we feel powerless, sometimes hurting those who love us gives us the most traction to cause something to happen. It feels like control.
A negative kind of power.
Exactly. It's described as the last vestige of power for the person who has so little of it. A desperate attempt to exert influence. The book emphasizes that we should try to see that God is speaking to us through every person and situation, and we often miss the message when we get caught up focusing on the messenger, the difficult person themselves.
See the lesson, not just the person.
Kind of. When dealing with emotionally unstable individuals, it's not our job to cure them, but maybe to maximize the potential of the relationship by adjusting our expectations of them. And it's crucial to remember intelligence has very little to do with this. Intelligence is largely unrelated to self-esteem and emotional well-being. Smart people can be just as unstable.
Okay, so bringing it all together, how do we ultimately achieve that deep healing and lasting freedom we talked about at the beginning?
The source points to sealing the leaks of the past.
Sealing the leaks.
Yeah, by healing relationships with ourselves, with others, and maybe with a higher power, primarily through forgiveness.
Forgiveness, that's a big one.
Huge. But forgiveness is good for you, the book argues. Because holding on to anger, which feels like control but is really just the illusion of control, ultimately makes us weaker and keeps us chained to the past.
It eats away at you.
Exactly. There's a profound insight shared from the Talmud. God creates the cure before the disease, and the cure, in this context, is found in forgiveness.
The cure before the disease.
And remember that fascinating quantum erasure effect concept again.
Yes, the now affecting the past's meaning.
Right. The source applies this profoundly to our personal history. A shift in perspective now allows us to undo our past and permanently alter how we see ourselves and our world. It changes the story we tell ourselves about what happened.
So forgiveness now can change how we experience the past.
It seems so. By letting go of the anger and resentment, the past event loses its negative power over us. Its meaning shifts. Remember the poor woman whose husband was an actor? Her now changed the before. Forgiveness can do that constructively.
That's incredibly empowering. And it means we don't have to wait to feel okay about the past before we move forward.
Exactly. We don't need to make peace with the past before moving on. Often the book says it is only when we move our lives forward in a meaningful direction that we are able to let go of the past and its negative associations.
Action leads to healing, not the other way around necessarily.
Often, yes. Taking responsibility now converts that old pain into the very fuel that ignites our emotional freedom.
Fuel again, I like that image.
And a core component of this whole path, as we touched on, is humility, described as the gateway to emotional health, spiritual growth, and positive relationships.
Gateway.
Yeah, it's the opposite of arrogance, which suffocates our connection to anything larger than ourselves and just repels others because, well, there's no room for anyone else.
Okay. Now, the source then explores King Solomon's rather enigmatic advice to fear God rather than love him. That sounds, well, scary.
It does sound counterintuitive in modern terms, but the explanation offered is that love is a consequence, a result of our actions. It's not something you can just switch on by command. Fearing God, in this context, means having awe and respect for ultimate reality, for cause and effect. And when you have that deeper respect, you stop fearing man. You stop being overly concerned with human approval or disapproval.
Because you answer to something higher.
Perhaps. And as a result, our decisions become more productive based on what's right, not just what looks good or feels easy. We gain self-esteem, and we experience a deeper sense of connection, maybe experience God in our lives.
And if we don't use our potential, if we just drift,
If we fail to utilize our potential, it's seen as a profound lack of gratitude. It disconnects our soul, essentially. And this leads to unhappiness and anxiety, which the source describes almost as a fail-safe mechanism.
a warning signal.
Exactly, a fail-safe designed to wake us up and get us back on track. So the journey really culminates with this profound idea that God is constantly speaking to us through everything, through people, situations, our own conscience. And by exercising our free will to consciously rise above our nature, to live purposefully with integrity and responsibility, we keep those lines of communication open.
We stay receptive.
Yeah, it allows us to see and hear and understand the subtleties, intricacies, and facets of God's plan for us in the world. We become more attuned.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. The source leaves us with a very powerful ancient story. It's about a man who wished to repent after years of, well, self-indulgence and bad choices.
Okay.
He cried out to the mountains, blaming his parents for his nature. Then he cried to heaven and earth, blaming his environment. Then to the sun and moon, blaming society's affluence for tempting him. And finally, to the stars and planets, blaming predestined fate.
Looking for excuses everywhere else.
Exactly. And each time his plea was rejected with the words, "Ask mercy for you, we must ask mercy for ourselves." Basically, don't blame us.
So what happened?
Feeling utterly helpless, totally alone in his despair, the man finally had a realization. He thought, it all depends on me. The responsibility is totally mine.
The breakthrough moment.
Yes. And at that exact moment, a heavenly voice proclaimed, "You are worthy of eternal life."
Wow. Only when he took full responsibility.
Precisely. So ultimately, you are responsible for your satisfaction with life. The final takeaway here is incredibly empowering, I think.
What is it?
If we accept responsibility for our lives, then nothing can stop us. If we do not, then nothing will move us.
Powerful choice.
So the question for you listening is, what will you choose to take responsibility for today to shift your perspective and embrace true emotional freedom?